War in Ukraine won't end, according to Lavrov, unless the West stops attempting to subdue Russia. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told Indonesian media on Wednesday that the war in Ukraine will not end unless the West tries to defeat Moscow. His comments followed a meeting of Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky with NATO leaders in Lithuania on Wednesday. Lavrov chastised the United States and its allies for supporting Ukraine in an interview with Indonesian newspaper Compass, ahead of his meeting with his East Asian counterparts in Jakarta this week. Regarding the conflict in Ukraine, he said, the West will continue to give up its plans to control the regime and, with the effect of competition for Russia, its thoughts will continue until its children are in the hands of Tyre Kyiv. Without any change in positions, we see that the United States and its allies continue to send arms to Ukraine and force Zelensky to fight. Lavrov will join U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken for the East Asia Summit and the ASEAN Regional Forum Foreign Ministers meeting on Friday. On February 24, 2022, Ukraine's too. He ordered it to be invaded in the biggest attack on a European country since World War II. In Indonesia, Lavrov praised what he calls Jakarta's non-conflict foreign policy. President Joko Widodo became the first Asian leader to visit Moscow and Kyiv after the protests began. Lavrov said Kyiv had not received Widodo's mediation or Indonesia's defense lawyers' offer to hold a meeting in eastern Ukraine, and was ignoring the West's nation-building initiative. Western supporters in Ukraine sent $10 million worth of weapons to help fight Russian aggression. NATO leaders pledged the future of Ukraine is in NATO after the first day of the meeting and interrupted the final process for Kyiv to join the partnership. But they did not allow time for Ukraine's future EU membership, which shows Washington's concern about getting into conflict with Russia. To persuade Zelensky, G7 members must make a statement on how they can help Ukraine defeat Russia and prevent new terrorism in the years to come. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov told an Indonesian newspaper on Wednesday that the armed conflict in Ukraine will continue until the West abandons its plan to control, respect, and conquer Moscow. Lavrov told Compass that the aim of the US-led Western coalition is to strengthen its global hegemony. Lavrov will attend the East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum in Jakarta this week, along with the United States. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Why is the conflict in Ukraine not over? The answer is simple. This conflict will continue until the West abandons its plans to control its own and overcomes Russia's desire to defeat it. It was stated that the transcript of the interview published on the website of the Russian Ministry of Foreign Affairs was in the hands of Kyiv puppets. There is no sign that this business will change anymore. Russia declared a full invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, calling it a special military operation to eradicate Nazism in neighboring countries. Kyiv and its allies called the war, now in its 17th month, violence on the ground. Russia unleashed a wave of kamikaze drone attacks on Kyiv 2 nights in a row, hours before President Vladimir Zelensky met with NATO leaders at the Vilnius summit. The West expressed a desire to help Ukraine win the conflict with Russia, and the Western powers supplied Kyiv with many modern weapons and ammunition. Lavrov also accused Kyiv of ignoring Indonesia's peace process for its own ultimatum. Ukraine rejected Indonesia's plan, a multi-point package that included a call for a demilitarized zone, and reiterated Kyiv's position that Russia should withdraw its troops from Ukraine. Commenting on the ongoing conflict in Myanmar since the military coup in 2021, Lavrov urged the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, to stand side by side with the government's armed forces, resolve the issue and not interfere in Myanmar's internal affairs. The ASEAN foreign ministers meeting on Tuesday should address the crisis in Myanmar. The regional government barred him from the previous meeting due to the government's non-compliance with the peace agreement. The comments came after Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky had a symbolic speech with NATO leaders at a meeting in Lithuania on Wednesday. Lavrov chastised the United States and its allies for supporting Ukraine in an interview with Indonesian newspaper Compass, ahead of his meeting with his East Asian counterparts in Jakarta this week. This will continue until the West gives up its plans to control the regime and its obsession with attacking Russia through its puppet Kyiv, he said of the Ukraine conflict. The United States and its allies continue to send weapons to Ukraine and force Zelensky to fight. At the G20 summit held in India in March, Russian President Vladimir Putin briefly called for intervention in Ukraine on February 24, 2022. Launches the biggest attack on a European country since World War II. According to Western estimates, more than 150,000 people have been killed or injured on both sides since then. Lavrov returned to Indonesia, praising Jakarta's policy of foreign neutrality. President Joko Widodo is the first Asian leader to visit Moscow and Kyiv since the uprising began. Lavrov said Kyiv did not accept Widodo's mediation or Indonesia's defense attorney's proposal to hold a conference in eastern Ukraine and ignored the West's nation-building initiative. Western supporters in Ukraine sent $10 million worth of weapons to help fight Russian aggression. After the first day of the meeting, NATO leaders promised that the future of Ukraine is in NATO and interrupted the final process for Kyiv to join the alliance. But Ukraine's failure to allow time for future EU membership shows Washington's concern about being dragged into conflict with Russia. To refer to Zelensky, the G7 countries must make a statement on how they can help Ukraine defeat Russia and prevent new terrorism in the coming year.